the frigid Arctic tundra, this life, having just emerged from its egg, is not greeted with warmth, but with a looming death sentence. There is no burrow to hide in, no cliffs for shelter. This nest lies completely exposed on the ice. Just one cruel gust of wind, or one careless breath before an approaching predator. This life will end the moment it begins. We often assume that the snowy owl is the ultimate assassin of the icy regions, that a creature possessing invisibility wings and deadly talons would always rule the tundra. But the harsh reality of nature is, strength doesn't mean invincibility. Even the most notorious assassin can be cornered, becoming a victim of its own environment, if it chooses the wrong land, or if the winter hunger drains its last vestiges of strength. Try putting yourself in that creature's shoes. Around you is a biting, sub-zero cold, and a gnawing hunger is burning your stomach. You can't take flight to find food, because the moment you leave the nest, your offspring will be torn apart. On the fragile boundary between life and death, the limits of a wild mother's endurance are stretched to the absolute limit. Will the ruthless instincts of a killer be enough to turn the tide? Or will this family be forever buried beneath the indifferent snow? In the following minutes, a truth about the harshest art of survival in the tundra will be revealed. You will witness an insane defensive tactic and a bloody turning point, transforming a weakling into a true phantom of the frozen land. Seen from afar, the Arctic tundra possesses the beauty of an endless, empty realm. But beneath that tranquil surface lies a never-sleeping battlefield, where life and death intertwine with every breath. This is not a lifeless land. It operates with the most subtle and ruthless movements, hurried hiding beneath the snow, tireless patrols, and hungry eyes hovering in the air. And right in the heart of this battlefield lies the beginning of the next generation of assassins. Because the tundra offers no shade, the snowy owl is forced to choose the riskiest nesting tactic in nature, placing its offspring directly on the exposed ground. No walls, no shelter. Every bone-chilling wind, every harsh change in weather, and every watchful eye of its enemies is directed straight at this nest. The moment the eggs appear, the mother owl is locked in place. She becomes the sole meat shield. If she leaves for even a minute, the Arctic cold will finish off her young before the fangs of a fox can even reach them. When the mother is completely confined to the nest, immense pressure for survival immediately falls on the male's shoulders. The hunt is no longer merely an individual survival instinct. It is the only thread holding the entire family back from the brink of extinction. Each day, this white predator must scour dozens of square miles of tundra. It is the sole source of energy throughout the incubation and rearing stages. Its target is the lemming, tiny creatures that are the lifeblood of the Arctic. But the tundra never offers food so easily. In some years, lemming populations collapse suddenly, turning the land into a famine-stricken wasteland in the middle of the snow. Here, every missed catch comes at a high price. It burns through the hunter's immense energy, and with each passing hour without a meal, the despair in the wallless nest grows, paving the way for another unforeseen danger to strike. Life finally emerged, but the Arctic offered no room for gentle welcomes. The tiny creature, having just emerged from its shell, was completely blind and helpless. It couldn't regulate its own body temperature. If the mother's feather shield were to be breached for even a few minutes, the tundra's bone-chilling cold would freeze its blood before it could utter a second cry. But warmth was only half the battle for survival. The other, far more brutal, was hunger. The rapid growth rate of the young owls is a tremendous energy-consuming machine. With each passing day, their need for fresh meat protein increases exponentially. But today, the great predatory machine of the tundra has failed. The decline of the lemming population is pushing this family to the brink. In that wallless nest, hunger is a silent but brutal enemy. It drains the little life force of the young, turning their cries into a locator signal for hungry predators. On the white tundra, vulnerability is never overlooked. Any opening will immediately attract the attention of death. The Arctic fox, a master opportunist, sniffed out the instability. It didn't need overwhelming strength. It only needed patience and cunning. It knew the fatal weakness of a ground nest. If the mother owl lost her composure or became exhausted and left, the entire nest and its young would become a bloody feast. The aerial predator was now forced into a passive defensive position against the ground predator. But if the fox thought an exhausted mother was easy prey, it made the final mistake of the day. For weeks, the mother owl had been motionless like an ice statue. But when the line between life and death was crossed, the instincts of a super killer were awakened. No more resignation, no more hiding. The white owl displayed a frenzied ferocity. In that moment of life and death, the wallless nest found its strongest fortress, the heart of a mother willing to throw herself to her death to protect the next generation. The Arctic fox has retreated, but in this tundra, death doesn't just lurk on the ground. It also descends from the sky. The nest, lacking walls, exposes every weakness. Aerial predators like the Jaeger know this well. They only need the mother owl to momentarily turn away or collapse from exhaustion, even for just a few seconds. At this point, the mother's warmth or anger is useless. The cubs must learn their first Arctic survival lesson. To avoid being killed, you must blend in with the inanimate world. Absolute silence. That was the ultimate defense of the weakest. They pressed themselves to the ground, held their breath, and resigned themselves to fate. Their tiny hearts pounded, but their bodies remained motionless like lifeless stones, and they survived. But to rule this land, they couldn't hide forever in their mother's shadow. They had to grow up, and they had to change. Weeks passed, and the small, cramped nest was no longer safe. To reduce the risk of being caught by predators, the owlets were forced to disperse. This was a devastating milestone. Leaving the nest meant stepping outside their mother's protective embrace. This newfound freedom came at a high price. From this moment on, every step, every moment of carelessness could cost them their lives. From victims who had only known how to wait for protection, they were beginning to transform into hunters. To become a true killer, instinct alone is not enough. All hunting skills must be honed through observation, time, and even failure. The young owl reads its prey's movements. Instinct tells it to attack. It swoops down with all the strength of a creature eager to prove itself. But the truth is, great killing machines aren't born in a day. The clumsy pounce had failed. The prey escaped, leaving a young hunter bewildered in the freezing snow. In the human world, failure is the mother of success. But in the Arctic, every missed hunt is a fatal drain on energy. It had just lost its most precious life force. And if it didn't quickly learn how to finish off its prey, the pride of a hunter would be buried by hunger. The summer clock was ticking down its final moments. Winter was approaching, and the tundra would never crown the weak. In the Arctic tundra, summer is not a time for rest or enjoyment. It's a relentless hourglass ticking down. Any young owl that doesn't develop sufficiently warm feathers, strong wings, and sharp hunting skills before September arrives will be devoured by winter. Young owls not only have to battle hunger and predators, they are racing against time. and nature never shows mercy to those who are unprepared. The clumsy pounce and bitter failure of the previous attempt had taught it a hard lesson. Muscular strength is meaningless without ruthless patience. This time, it didn't lunge on the urge of its empty stomach. It held its breath. It waited. It was learning to force its heartbeat to match the stillness of the tundra. Waiting for the exact moment the prey crossed its final safety line. And when the opportunity arose, the stillness instantly transformed into a furious, swift onslaught. There was no warning sound. Not a single shadow was cast upon the snow. A perfect, cold slash. It had fully applied what it had observed from its parents. Fly low, absolute silence, and attack relentlessly. For the first time in its life, its talons tasted the fresh blood of prey it had brought down itself. This success wasn't just about filling an empty stomach. It was a tundra certificate. The frail, trembling owlet that once trembled under its mother's wings had officially vanished. It had crossed the final boundary between life and death, transforming into a true predatory specter of the north. The harsh winter was returning. The cold would deepen, food would become scarcer, and the family would eventually be separated to embark on independent journeys. But at least the wallless nest had triumphed this year. The young owl had successfully honed its most brutal survival skills. It was ready to face the harshness of the Arctic. But a tragedy was silently unfolding. The icy landscape itself was no longer ready to shelter it. The tundra was changing. Abnormal climate shifts brought icy rains that fell on the snow, quickly freezing into an invisible, sharp layer of ice. This solid ice prevented the lemmings from burrowing for food, causing mass collapses of their prey populations. In nature, everything is connected by a fragile chain of survival. The fate of the ultimate predator in the sky is entirely tied to the tiny creature on the ground. When the lemming's cycle is broken, no matter how precise its pounce or how perfect its camouflage, it becomes meaningless. The white specters of the tundra face a bleak future, where their primal instincts may no longer be enough to withstand the devastating changes in the very world they once ruled. The journey of the wallless nest has come to an end. It teaches us a cruel but beautiful lesson about the laws of nature. Survival is never determined solely by absolute strength or the ability to take another's life. It is the stillness needed when hiding, the explosive precision when delivering the decisive blow, the unwavering patience in the face of hunger, and above all, the true value of a great predator is measured by its ability to gamble its own life to protect the next generation through the first season of its life. And as those white wings slowly disappear into the Arctic storm, the story of survival continues out there, silent, fierce, and breathtakingly beautiful. If you are one of the few who are fascinated by the cruel laws of nature, don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. We will meet again in the next life or death battles of the wild.